it. Don't get scared now.
I think that applies to this video more than any other one I've done so far, because today we're playing what a lot of people consider to be the scariest video game of all time. Good evening, folks. I hope you guys had a good work week. Was a frustrating one for me. It was a tough week at my job, as is, but then Friday night, I had an issue with my car, so I had to spend the day dealing with that. My car is running good right now, but yeah, I'm ready to just relax and play a video game right now. And we do got a fun one tonight, and that is Silent Hill. This game was released in 1999. It was created by Konami. They put Silent Hill into production in 1996 in hopes that they could cash in on the survival horror craze that Resident Evil brought on. After Resident Evil came out, there are all kinds of horror games coming out. Some of them even made by themselves. You ever played Dino Crisis? It's basically Resident Evil with dinosaurs. But they wanted to jump on that. A lot of people were doing it. And you think they would throw a good deal of money at such a project, or talent behind it, but they didn't really seem to take it seriously. The project ended up in the hands of Team Silent, which was a collective of employees at Konami who had failed in their previous roles or just didn't fit into the hierarchy at the company. At most companies, these people would probably be fired, but, you know, Hideo Kojima was one of those employees at some point, and he turned out to be a major asset for them until they decided they didn't need him anymore, but that's another story. So they probably thought these guys would be useful. So when they gave them the project, they basically just told them they wanted a Hollywood-style horror game in the vein of Resident Evil, and then they just kind of left them to their own devices. And Team Silent, being the pack of weirdos that they are, basically just did their own thing rather than, you know, try to replicate Resident Evil. They definitely took some influence from it, but Silent Hill ended up being a very unique beast from what was on the market at the time. And it paid dividends too. The game was very successful at retail. It won universal praise upon its release. And it would spawn probably the second most famous horror franchise of all time. Not one that has endured as much as Resident Evil due to the incompetence of Konami, but one that has endured nonetheless. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. As you probably expect, I'm playing on the PS3, which thankfully I was able to download this a good long while ago, so this is just something that's always been on my PlayStation. Make sure everything is working before I start.
Playing on the PS.
Yep, alright. This is it. Don't get scared now, guys. Still wish I had nostalgia for that. I really need to play some N64 games on this stream. I still haven't done that yet. There are violent and disturbing images in this game. I love how they say there are. Oh man, I miss the days when that was a marker quality. I have no idea what that is though. The fear of blood tends to create fear for the flesh. So right away, we're getting into quite a bit of history here. So Silent Hill is famous for its CGI cutscenes. And apart from the fact that these actually look really good by the standards of the PlayStation 1, that fact is made even more impressive by the fact that this was all done by just one person. These CGI cutscenes were done by a Takayoshi Sato, who was an artist at Konami, which was sort of a weird role at the time, and he started out mostly just doing type fonts. because that was all they thought an artist was good for back in those days. So, wanting to do more for the company, he taught himself 3D modeling, and he got so good at it that he was actually teaching senior members how to do it. But because of that, he wasn't working on any games, and that really bothered him. So he demanded to his bosses that he either be put on Metal Gear Solid or this cool horror game that was coming out. And they probably stuck him with Team Silence because, well, why would they put him on Metal Gear Solid? Just put him with all the other Trouble employees. And so he started doing these CGI cutscenes, and then to make matters worse, the upper management didn't want to give credit to a guy who basically strong-armed them. So they tried to put a supervisor above him, which would rob him of all the credit for this amazing work that he's done. So in order to get credit, he did everything himself. He had no help doing all this stuff. And that's crazy for me to think as an artist myself, because animation is a largely collaborative effort. You do not do this stuff by yourself, especially not on this scale. Evidently, the dude was living at the office for, I think, a good chunk of the development time, just trying to get it all done. But it definitely paid dividends. As for the title screen, it's pretty effective. Graphic design's not bad. It's a little weird how the font gets thicker in the center. I'm not sure what's up with that. Maybe to try to signify light or something. But the imagery, the fog rolling by, and the silhouette in the background, that is pretty effective. We'll play on normal. Ooh, and that was a good sound effect. We're on the subject of sound effects. The music in this game was done by Akira Yamaoka. I probably mispronounced these names, and I apologize if that's the case. And their sound design and soundtrack here is just phenomenal. Very atmospheric, very guttural. It's distinctly Silent Hill, I guess you could say. And he's probably the longest running contributor of Silent Hill. He's done work on the vast majority of games in the series. I think all of them, actually, though. I didn't take the time to look that up, so I don't know. It's quiet. Too quiet. You don't know the half of it, buddy. Okay, so as always, we're going to start with the controls, and just like Resident Evil, Silent Hill uses those wonderful tank controls, and I talked a little bit about this in my Resident Evil video about why tank controls are used in lieu of just traditional analog controls. And for that game, it made sense to do that because it used the fixed camera angles and, pre-rendered backgrounds. So it made sense to use that control scheme because when the camera cuts, there's a chance with full analog it could just spaz out. So it made sense to do that, but with Silent Hill here, as you can see, I can adjust the camera. So why they didn't just use full analog controls is questionable. I think I understand why. That was probably mandated by management. A lot of people were doing that because they thought, oh, Resident Evil's popular, so just make the controls like that game. When in reality, you didn't really need to do that. Resident Evil wasn't popular because of how it played. Now, it is true that Silent Hill does use some fixed camera angles, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's necessary for them to use the tank controls all the time. So what I think they should have done is actually giving you the option of what you want to use. So just map the tank controls to the D-pad and map analog movements to the right analog stick. And I know that would work really well because that's exactly what they did in Tormented Souls, if you ever played that. Some other things that you can do that you can't do in Resident Evil. Harry can actually step to the side if you hold the shoulder buttons, And if you tap both of them at the same time, he actually does a quick turnaround feature, which, you know, Silent Hill actually did before Resident Evil, if you can believe it or not. But anyway, I've talked enough. Let's get on with it. Gotta go find Harry's kid. Little girl, get over here.
Cheryl? Is that Cheryl?
You know, that probably wasn't the best way to call for her. I'd run away from me too.
Where are you going? Hey, wait! Stop!
Alright, so commenting on the graphics here, it's distinctly a PS1 game, but there is some good things going on with this game under the hood, but we'll talk more about that as we go along. I like how you can just barely see her in the fog, and that's just pressing you to go forward further into this alley here. And the snow falling's a really nice touch too. It is distinctly a PS1 game with the newly character models and the jittery textures and everything. But I've definitely seen worse on the console. I would say Metal Gear Solid works worse than this, actually. And good grief, what on earth happened here? That was probably something that was once alive and is now dead. You know, I was watching The Thing the other night. I hope that thing doesn't come up and get me. So like I said, Silent Hill does use fixed camera angles to some degree. The whole game is fully 3D instead of pre-rendered like Resident Evil did. And what's good about that is that you can have these cinematic camera movements like this. And I would say that if you get creative enough with them, you don't actually need tank controls. Eternal Darkness actually had the camera following you instead of it changing angles. But for something like this, yeah, probably is good to have tank controls for them. But like I said, just have the option. D-pad for tank controls, analog stick for full analog. Not that hard. This was early 3D though, so they probably weren't thinking about stuff like that at the time. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's like a weather alert siren going off. And of course it's getting darker. And that is so cool. You don't see lighting effects like this on PlayStation all that often, so that's kind of black magic right there. Now, something sounds like a squeaky wheel. Now, talking about Tormented Souls actually does make me think of Tormented Souls. If you guys have played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about, too. And of course, there's a covered-up corpse here. And this is really where you start to hear the music come into play, or I don't know if music is the right term, but it's very guttural, almost like it's some kind of machine that's in need of oil or something. It just sounds very hazardous. It's really fitting for Resident Evil, for Silent Hill. Oh great, more blood. This cannot be good.
What is this? What's going on here?
Something horrible, and dated graphics aside, that is still some graphic imagery. Ah! Ankle biters! Hey, off! Ah! Hey, off! Hey, hey, off! Little... Urgh. Why can't you just kick him, Harry? So, I need to get... hey, wasn't there a door here? Ah, crap. Don't worry, folks, it's just part of the game. Talk about a great opening, though. That's a fantastic first scare right there. That just, hit you like a punch in the face. So good. So good. That movement there is just so smooth, and the facial expression, too. One guy did this. One guy.
Was I dreaming?
Silent Hill, you never know. A lot is left up to interpretation as to what's going on here, so you never know.
Truck. But I'm all right, I guess.
Glad to hear it. You from around here? Why don't you tell me what happened?
Wait a second. I'm just a tourist.
Are you sure about that?
For a vacation. I just got here. I don't know what happened. I'd like to find out myself. Have you seen a little girl? Just turned 7 last month. Short, black hair. My daughter.
Sorry. The only person I've seen in this town is you.
Where is everybody?
I'd tell you if I knew, believe me. But from what I can tell, something bizarre is going on.
You think?
What's your name?
Harry. Harry Mason.
Attorney at law.
Sybil Bennett. I'm a police officer from Brams, the next town over.
Officer.
The phones are all dead, and the radio too. I'm going back to call in some reinforcements. Hold it. Where do you think you're going?
Where do you
My
think?
daughter. I've got to find her.
Agreed.
No way. It's dangerous out there.
Your point.
In that case, I
All
need
the
to
more
find
reason to
her.
go find her.
Cheryl's my little girl. I can't just leave her out there by herself.
Good man.
Have you got a gun?
No.
Take this, and hope you don't have to use it.
Yeah.
Now listen to me. Before you pull the trigger, know who you're shooting. And don't
Trying to see how she's holding that gun.
And don't go blasting me by mistake.
In this fog covered town, that is a real danger there.
Yeah. Thanks.
You do best to stay nearby. I'll be back with help as quick as I can.
Okay, so a couple of things to unpack with that interaction. So first of all, the voice acting. I would say it's not as bad as it is in Resident Evil. It actually sounds like, you know, they hired people who have a little bit of acting experience. And some people might comment on the stilted dialogue, how there's a lot of pauses in between sentences. But that was actually an intentional choice in regards to direction. Silent Hill takes a lot of influence from, David Lynch and stuff like Twin Peaks. And they tend to have dialogue like that. There is generally supposed to be some hidden meaning behind it. I wouldn't really know. I've never watched Twin Peaks or a David Lynch film. But it is something to point out, and it does sort of add to the atmosphere. And... But yeah, so voice acting, not that bad. It just goes to show how much better it is if you at least have well-written dialogue instead of whatever they were doing in the Resident Evil game. Alright, so got some stuff here we can pick up. Health drink. A nice little flashlight. It's helpful. And you get a map. Always helpful. And we got the notepad here. Someday someone may experience these bizarre events. Hopefully they'll find my notes useful. I don't know how many people would, Harry, considering that after Team Silent stopped making these games, a lot of the games that followed were just prequels or remakes or weird reimaginings. I don't know what they're going to find. But these notepads here are the save spots, so... And that does bring us nicely into something else that's a major aspect of it. When we were playing Resident Evil, we talked a great deal about inventory management in that game, which was a big deal. You only had so much inventory space to work with, and though you could store items you didn't need in the subspace storage bins, you had to really think about what you wanted. Ammo, health, and unfortunately inventory items. Silent Hill sort of does away with all that. You have an infinite inventory, so anything you come across in the game you can carry with you. So as many weapons, as much ammo and health items as you want, it's always on hand. And personally, I don't really like that. For me, a big part of a survival horror game has always been inventory management. And because of this, you don't really find yourself thinking about what you want to take with you, what you want to discard, where you want to keep stuff like that. So in Resident Evil, if you came across a monster and you didn't have enough ammo for it or any health items because you had a different weapon you thought you would need, you'd be put in a bad spot, but that was intentional. That was part of the design, and that was part of the horror of Resident Evil, that you were there was a chance that you were making the wrong choice. But that just doesn't exist in Silent Hill, so that is kind of a problem for me. They would try to do limited inventory in later games, but they just never got it right. So maybe it's for the best that it's implemented like this. So essentially how the gun works is just like it is in Resident Evil. You go into a gun stance, which is awful, by the way. He's clearly never fired a weapon before. And it's interesting to note that Harry can actually take his gun out, move forward, move back, and even step to the side too. So he's a bit more mobile than the stars, isn't he? Anyway, let's see what else we got in here. No, there's more over here. Here we go. Always want to have health. Not really built for combat, but with all the crazy stuff going around, any knife would be good right now. And what's this? I'm asking like I don't know. I have played this before. She did say the radio was out. Anyway, we better get out there and find the kid. Oh, so now it works. I hate this song though.
Huh.
This new age crap.
What's going on with that radio?
Okay. Ah! You stay away.
This is not a dream. What's happening to this place?
You know what? That is a really good question. And that's what the beauty of Silent Hill compared to something like Resident Evil. The fact that you just walk into the game, the town, and everything, just so many questions. What's going on here? Where did these monsters come from? Why is there a fog covering it? Why does things just seem to change on a dime? What is going on in this town? And the game revels in not telling you about it, and that is just so much fun from a horror perspective, because the less you understand about something, the scarier it is. Like, you remember me playing Resident Evil, I wasn't really scared of the zombies per se, and that's because the zombies inherently are not scary, because everyone knows how to deal with a zombie. You just pop it in the head, blow it off, and then you're done. Same thing with vampires and werewolves, silver bullets, a stake through the heart. Everyone knows how to deal with stuff like that. But whatever on earth this thing is, yeah, I got no idea how I would normally deal with that. Just pulling out my gun and hoping that it dies, which thankfully it does. That's just naturally more terrifying. And the fact that I could just smash through these windows and get at me was a little freaky too. Again, really good scare there. Doesn't look like I took too much damage there either, that's good. Blew through some ammo though. Anyway, that radio would definitely come in handy, wouldn't it? Okay, let's go outside. Where could Cheryl have gone? I guess I'll check that alley again. Yeah, because that sounds like a good idea. Okay, so now we start. This is really where the game begins in a lot of ways. And I really want to talk about how Silent Hill instills fear in the player. So, you remember as we were making our way through that alley in the opening section of the game, the heavy fog and the darkness and all that stuff. So that was very common in games at the time because 3D technology was still a real new thing at the time. And people were having a hard time grasping how you would actually, program a game to render it. So because of that, a lot of developers chose to hide the rendering of the polygons through like fog or darkness or something like that. And that's essentially the conclusion that Team Silent came to too. But rather than just be stuck with it, they actually had the clever idea to work it into the gameplay. So no matter where you are in Resident Evil, there's always going to be something obscuring your vision. So the most famous is of course the fog, which is always present, but even when you go inside, there's always darkness. It's always dark. And what's good about that is you just can't see very far in front of you. And that's where the radio comes in. When the radio blares, that means that there's an enemy nearby, but the perimeter at which the radio is set off, it's just far enough to where you wouldn't be able to see the enemy if they're right in front of you. So when that radio blares, you have an option. You can either just book it and hope you're run away from whatever is out there, or you can plant your feet and hope that whatever is coming at you from the front. And of course that you have the resources to deal with. And that's where the horror of Silent Hill comes from. It just naturally exploits your fear of the unknown. Now, that's like, I think Uncle Derek of Stop Skeletons Are Fighting put it best. Resident Evil, people like that just fine, but Silent Hill actually scared people. And while it doesn't scare me personally, I do understand why it does make a lot of people nervous. Anyway, I've talked enough about that. Let's go ahead and continue with the game. So check my map, which thankfully there's a button for. And I do like how the map is actually a literal map that Harry is looking at and how he marks down everything where he needs to go. That's really clever. So I need to go this way, I think. Looks like we got some ammo here. It's a lot easier to see stuff and it can interact with the 3D environments too. The stuff you can pick up tends to stand out a little bit more versus how it is in Resident Evil, where it wasn't uncommon for it all to blend into the background. But yeah, see, I can't see anything right now. I just do not know what's out there, and that's terrifying. Now something is on me. I can hear that it's on me, but I don't know where it's at. And it's behind me. Leave me alone! I know some of you guys are saying to yourself, why don't you just shoot the darn thing? But see, you don't want to go wasting your ammo out here if you can help it. Because unlike, say, Resident Evil, where after you kill an enemy, it stays dead, out here in Silent Hill, the enemies can respawn, so you don't want to go wasting your resources on them. You want to save that for instances where they actually will stay dead. So going back down the alleyway again. Gotta look out for those ankle biters. Controls are getting a little weird, not sure what's up with that. I really do still hate those tank controls. It might not look like I'm having that hard a time here, but it just does feel really clunky. I've just played enough of these games that I've kind of gotten used to tank controls like this. Got some more ammo. Yes, please. To school. No! I would not go to school! I do a terrible Cartman.
Isn't this Cheryl's sketchbook? She's at the school.
The first place you have to go is an elementary school. You ever see those back to school commercials? You ever notice how the kids are always happy and excited that they're going back to school? The people who write those commercials, they've never actually met a kid, have they? I hated going to school when I was a kid. Unless I was in an art class or some specific academic classes with some really good teachers. Like, yes, I am talking about you, Miss Konski. I just was counting down the seconds to when I could go home. I hated school so much. Our education system is just awful. Okay, so I got a new weapon here, so I do want to talk about that here. So one of the things that Silent Hill emphasizes, especially if you want to save ammo, which you're playing a horror game, you want to save your ammo for the more dangerous stuff. They put a little more focus on melee combat. So over the course of the game, you'll find melee weapons in addition to firearms. And melee combat works just about the same as the guns. You hold R2 to get ready, and if you tap the button, he'll swing it in a wide manner, which is good for effects, but if you hold the button, they'll bring it down like a sledgehammer. So it's naturally clunky, and the purpose behind that is that the idea is Harry is a everyman. You just look at the way he's standing with his feet so far apart and the huge windup that he's taken. You can tell he's never thrown a punch before in his life. And that is the idea. He's not like Link where his attacks are swift, precise, and practiced. So melee in a survival horror game, is it a good idea? It depends. I think it is done reasonably well in Silent Hill, for starters. Harry doesn't feel like he knows what he's doing, so it's always clunky. And while there are some enemies you're comfortable with fighting with the melee weapons, there's still plenty of enemies you want to use your guns on, like the flying things we saw earlier, those dogs that are swift and deadly. With stuff like that, you do want to pull the guns out because they're just too threatening to deal with, and of course, you don't want to try to melee the boss in this game. You want to save the guns primarily for that. So melee is used effectively in the first Silent Hill. It's not like Callisto Protocol where I think you could play the majority of the game and just get away with using melee weapons. The melee in that game was just awful. Preferably in a horror game, I think it's best if the combat really boils down to just keeping enemies as far away from you as possible. And with melee combat, it's always tempting to make the system deeper, add blocking, add counters, add stuff like that. But if you're inviting the threat to you into your personal space, are you really scared of it? I don't know if you guys can hear it, but the ambience here is really good. You just hear the wind going through that alley. It's great. So, a perfect example of an enemy you want to avoid, or not avoid, just not fight with the melee weapons. Alright, now I gotta find my way to school. Can't believe I just said that. Alright, head out of the alley and take a left. Just leave me alone. And there actually is in-game reasoning for those things. But again, the purpose of my videos is to encourage people to play the games themselves, not necessarily, watch me play them. So if you want to know what those things are all about, play the game yourself. And we come to what is an abyss. Why is there an abyss here? Again, I have an idea of why. And that's just part of the fun. Why is this stuff here? Something very strange is going on in this town, and I love it. Reload. Health item. There's still something out there. Avoid the dogs. Go down this next street. And that's the dead end too, but what do we have over here? Dog's house. Leavin Street. Okay, so that was Leavin Street over there, so I guess I gotta go kill those dogs. So the way they actually lead you through the town of Silent Hill actually is really good. They do a good enough job pointing you in the right direction, but they also don't tell you expressly what you need to do. You still have to think about it a little bit. So good progression for these parts of the game. But I'm not going to try to melee those dogs, so I'm going to get the guns out. Two shots. One down. There's our doghouse. There's the other one. And just like Resident Evil, you have an auto aim, but it's not quite as reliable, so it's good that they have that though, since you still can't effectively aim your weapon. They really wouldn't get aiming right in shooting games until Resident Evil 4 came out, which we're not going to be covering this year. We might do the Resident Evil remake and maybe Silent Hill 2, but we aren't doing Resident Evil 4 this year. I want to cover some newer horror games in October. Key in the doghouse. Who puts a doghouse in their front yard like this? I think the homeowners association would have something to say about that. I feel bad that I killed that dog too, but actually no, I'm not. That was a demon dog. What we got here? It's like a first aid kit. Always helpful. Not sure where Harry is holding all this stuff. And there's another famous part of Silent Hill, the copious amounts of locked doors. I used to think that was really annoying, like what's the point of all these locked doors? But then I was watching Boulder Punch's video on it, and he pointed out that that actually adds to the atmosphere, because then you start to think, why are these doors locked? Was someone in there trying to keep something out? Or were they trying to keep something in? So much horrifying stuff in this game, so you never know. There might be something really freaky on the other side of those doors, and it being left to your own imagination like that, that is kind of brilliant, so that is a good point. Boulder Punch is great, by the way, so if you guys are looking for some good Silent Hill videos, be sure you check his stuff out. He's great. Really loves his horror games too. His channel name Boulder Punch actually comes from a scene in Resident Evil 5, you know, where Chris is punching the boulder in the volcano. We'll talk more about what was going on with that when we do get to, you know, the newer games. Nothing in the fridge. What about the door? It puts 3 locks on the back door. You need at least 10. Something is written on the map, hanging on the wall. Keys for Eclipse. Copied on the map. Alright, so guess I gotta go find those keys then. So, going back outside. Might as well be venturing into hell. Alright, let's get a move on. Where am I going? Would be nice if they had a map screen out in game so you didn't have to constantly check the map like that. It does lead to a lot of stop and go, which is never fun. Like, even when that radio isn't blaring, you're still on edge because the silence is just so eerie. And that's another aspect of the horror in Silent Hill. Silent Hill itself just looks like a regular old town, and it doesn't even look that decrepit either. But what's creepy about it is just that it's empty. I don't know, like, I actually did an internship at Disney, and I would actually go into the parks early in the morning before everyone else came in there. And like, everyone's been to Disney at some point, and you know what a lively place it is. It's just something going on at all times. So imagine going in there like at the crack of dawn when it's not even light outside, and it just being empty. It's just really creepy. Silent Hill kind of taps into the anxiety you get from that. And then you come across, you know, a mangled corpse or blood spattered on the wall, and you just wonder, oh man, there's something really bad going on in this town, isn't there? God, I love this game. Okay, I can't go in there. Never hurts to check. And now something's coming at me, stupid butterfly thingamajigs. Spoilers. You stay away! I will shoot you. sure a lot of people want me to explain the symbolism and everything, but again, that's the fun of Silent Hill, just kind of interpreting it for yourself. I do give you some explanation as to what's going on in the town, but believe me, it's more fun if it's left vague. That's something that anyone outside of Team Silent just didn't seem to understand. It's a shame that Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro didn't get a chance to make Silent Hills, because that just sounded like a match made in heaven. I would have loved to have played that. Unfortunately, Konami is, well, Konami. And there is a new Silent Hill game on the horizon, and even a remake of 2, which is exciting. But, I don't know. I just have a feeling they're going to screw it up. Last game I played by Konami was, new game was Metal Gear Survive. And I think that speaks for itself, and I don't think I need to elaborate on my feelings on that game. Someone else who was going to work on Silent Hills was Junji Ito, famous mangaka known for his just haunting horror short stories. If you're looking for some good comic books to read for the spooky season, I definitely recommend his stuff. And I know some of this content might be a little violent and disturbing for some people, but like, it's warned in the game, and it is rated M for mature. So let's be real, if you're letting your kid watch this video, you're just a terrible parent. And you can quote me on that too. This is one of those games that my folks never would have let me play when I was a kid. In fact, I don't think I played a horror game. I don't think I played a rated M game until I was 15. And I think my first horror game, I probably didn't give a try until I was in college. No, that's not true. The first horror game I played was when I was in high school. That was Dead Space. Though that was more of an action horror. We'll talk more about that later. Alright, so I got 2 of the 3 keys. And the next one is out on a bridge. Should probably scout an escape route too once I find Cheryl. So probably should head this way anyway. Another zombie land rule. When in doubt, know your way out. I'm not leaving without the kid. I wouldn't leave without the kid. But once I have the kid, it'll be nice to know where I need to go to get out of this place. Hey. Stay away. Okay, I got the keys, so now it's time to run. Okay, so I'll follow this street until I hit Leven Street. And it's nice that Harry can sprint endlessly here. At a modern horror game, that would have had a stamina meter that bombs out after, you know, just running a couple of feet. When you're in a situation like this, I'm pretty sure the adrenaline would kick in and you would be able to exert yourself a lot more. And it is a nice touch how when you do let off the sprint button, you do hear Harry trying to catch his breath. That's a neat touch. Just so much attention to detail is paid with this game, it's incredible. Just goes to show that trouble employees aren't necessarily troubled. A lot of the time you just gotta stay out of their way and let them work. If they had put a more experienced team behind this, they probably would have just made a Resident Evil clone. But yeah, I'm thinking about Resident Evil as I'm playing this, but I wouldn't call this a Resident Evil clone by any stretch of the imagination. This isn't Resident Evil, this is Silent Hill, baby. Alright, where's that doghouse? I just want to point out, despite the fog, despite the lack of being able to see a lot of the landmarks and everything, I'm still finding my way around pretty easily. It's not like I've played this game a million times in the past. I've only completed it, I think, twice in my lifetime. First time when I played it for the first time, and the second was at the request of the MLG Panda after playing Silent Hill 2 for her. She wanted to see a Silent Hill 1. So we spent a weekend playing this. Or I did. She was too scared to play it. Undo all these locks. You know, if I could find myself a sock and dump these locks into it, I'd have myself a pretty good club. But I guess Harry isn't crazy, so... that droning, dude. Wow. Something very bad is going on here, Harry. I think you would have clued into that by now. And these lighting effects are just so cool, dude. What Team Silent was just able to achieve here is just nothing short of amazing. This is just black magic right here. Alright, where are we at now? Okay, so we're in another alley. So this should get us around one of those crevices. And then enemies, dogs, crap. And again, I can always turn and fight those things, but I'm afraid to waste my bullets because you never know what's out there. They do eventually lose track of you if you run far enough away, but some of them do stick with you. Silent Hill understands that just because you're running from something doesn't mean that you're necessarily afraid of it. And here, I just feel inclined to run naturally. Because for all you know, there's just a horde of monsters following you in this fog and darkness, so you just want to get out of here as soon as possible. Should be coming up on the school here in a minute. And I'm just timing this perfectly. This is exactly where I wanted to get to a stopping point here, get into the elementary school. Okay, so we made it to school. So getting to the school, the rules definitely change when you get to places like this. Throughout Silent Hill, there'll be locations that you need to go to. And when you reach that location, the game definitely shifts to something more akin to, you know, how Resident Evil was structured. So it suddenly becomes more about exploration, puzzle solving, and of course fending off enemies. And given the tight corridors you're in, you kind of had no choice but to fight the enemies. So it definitely becomes more familiar, and the radio has a different effect too. See, right there, you got nothing, but if an enemy was in here, it would have blared, and that would have been an indication to me that there is something in here I needed to avoid. So you get used to that, so when you actually go through a door and you don't hear that blare, it's you actually breathe a sigh of relief, which is good. God, these line effects are so cool. Like, these graphics are dated, but I don't know, there's just a charm to them. Maybe it's just because I grew up with these kind of graphics as a kid, and I just appreciate them more as a result. It's still pretty cool. I guess this is the nurse's office, so loot the medical supplies while I can. I don't think there's anything else of value in here. Got 5 more minutes left in the stream. See what kind of trouble I can get into here. It's exactly what I said in school too. That's actually not true. I wasn't a troublemaker in school. The most trouble I got into was just drawing in my class when I should have been listening to the teachers, but it's their fault for bothering me while I was drawing. It's not like I was being disruptive or anything. They were just annoyed that I wasn't listening to them. Okay, what do we got here? So, exactly what I'm talking about. This place looks normal. Then you come into a room like this, and everything is covered in blood. That's freaky. It's written in blood. 12 o'clock. A place with songs and sound. A silver guidepost is untapped in a lot of tons. Awakening the ordained order. So, Silent Hill definitely loves its puzzles, and they can actually be really intricate too. 10 o'clock, Alchemy Laboratory. Gold in an old man's palm. The future is hidden in his fist. Exchange for sage's water. And people who have played this game probably know what puzzles exactly all this is referring to. And that is one of the issues with Silent Hill. Some of the problems can be a little obtuse. There were points in the game where I did have to look up a fact on what I was supposed to do. But it's definitely not as bad as like the original Zelda or games from that era. I'm sure if you played this enough time, or if you were just smarter than me, you know, someone who actually pay attention in school, you would be able to figure out the problems pretty easily. In later Silent Hill games, they would actually have a separate difficulty selector for puzzles. So if you're like me and you just rather get a move on with the adventure, you can just set it low and keep the pace going. Or if you really want some brain busters, you can set it all the way high, at which point you better have knowledge of Shakespeare and classic literature. Yeah, you really need a brain to play these games, let me tell you. See, now I know there's something out here. Ah, it's an ankle biter. I'm gonna kick your butt. As soon as I get to my... Yeah, I better pop a health thing, which I have 7 of. I'll teach you. Off of me. These things are really disturbing. If you know what the symbolism behind them is, it is really messed up. Because essentially, actually I'm not going to say that because I don't want to admit that on a stream, and you know, I am kind of making a joke out of fighting these things, so it's best I not do that. But yeah, these things are really creepy. But yeah, that's how the melee combat in this game works. Yeah, we're coming up on 9 o'clock, and I think that'll be a good place to call it for the night. So, Silent Hill, as I've said, I've completed this game a few times, and can you tell I really like this game? And I do, I really do. But the game has definitely shown its age with the controls, the graphics, and I guess even the voice acting for some people. It's surprising how much of it is still effective. Just the way it scares you, the monster design, the fog, like it all just comes together unlike anything else I can think of, really. It definitely provides a different experience from Resident Evil. I would argue that Resident Evil is probably the more mechanically sound game. So if you're looking for something that's fun to play, you can pick up Resident Evil and enjoy it. But Silent Hill is for, people who actually want to be scared. Now, again, this game doesn't really scare me. The only game that really scares me is System Shock. But it is still a pretty chilling game. It does make you panic a little bit. It's just a really good horror game. So if you want to play this game, though, it's going to be a little tricky. I play it off the PS3, which I don't think is going to be an option much longer, seeing as how I downloaded it. Let's see how much a copy of it goes for on eBay. 1 second. So, yeah, you're not buying a physical copy of this, because that's absolutely outrageous. That's the problem with a lot of old horror games like this. They just tend to go for triple-digit prices. So, do not recommend getting a physical copy of this. Look, even one that has a crack and is a player's choice one goes for $91. I think I heard somewhere that you can get the game on GOG, so let's see if that's an option. Search Silent Hill, and you can't, so it's not here either. So I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but if you would really like to give Silent Hill a try, your only option is probably going to be emulation until Konami makes their own game, because Konami decides to re-release it, which they might do. They are re-releasing Metal Gear, and they are doing a remake of Silent Hill 2. And actually, why are they doing one of Silent Hill 2? Actually, I do get it, and I'm not against it, because Silent Hill 2 is lost media. But come on, start with the first Silent Hill. I mean, this is a great game too. It has some things that could be addressed with a remake. Could you imagine what this game would be like with modern graphics? I don't know, man. It's just really hard to be a Silent Hill game, because you just never know if it comes back, is it going to be good or not? If they re-release the games, are they going to make them right? Because they did try to remaster Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 3, and that was a disaster. It's just hard to, recommend these games without are so expensive. If you do manage to get your hands on them, or you are brave enough to emulate them, by all means, go for it. This is one of the best games in the horror genre, and I cannot recommend it enough. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's content. If you would like to see me do more of these, I do these videos every week, typically around Saturday night, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. And I will change it up every once in a while, but you'll get notice if I do that. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. I really should get this up before I end the stream. It doesn't look like anyone was watching me tonight.